Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you the 10 biggest lessons and takeaways that I have learned over 10 years of therapy. And we're basically going to be condensing some of my biggest takeaways from over 120 hours of therapy. So I've been in and out of therapy since I was 19, and these are some of the biggest pros, cons, and just general life lessons that I think talking to a professional allowed me to see. So if you enjoyed today's video and if you enjoy some of my most recent content, I would really love it if you would consider subscribing. Join me as I look for more purpose, more meaning, and just looking to live more of an intentional, healthy, and happy life. If that's something that you're interested in, I'd really love it if you would consider subscribing and joining me here. So number one, something that I began to learn earlier on in my therapy, but I think within the last few years, I'm gonna say almost mastered it, and that is setting healthy boundaries. This is something that I feel like I truly understand the value and the concept of setting healthy boundaries. And let me know in the comments down below if this is the case for you. But I think in society today, I think women are sometimes made to feel guilty. It's really important to learn how to set healthy boundaries. And for me, the biggest light bulb moment was when I will never forget this. If you've followed me on Instagram for quite some time, you'll remember this saga. But I had my postman show up to my house, blasting music from his car, sitting on my doorstep, wearing dress shoes and a nice shirt, playing the ukulele and singing, basically serenading me. I was in my house absolutely terrified. And sometimes these things can arise when you do not set healthy boundaries. And this for me was my light bulb moment. And this is when I began to learn that setting healthy boundaries are important, not only in your friendship groups, but with strangers, in your professional life, in your personal life, in all areas of your life. It is important to set healthy boundaries. So take this as a sign from the universe, like this right now, this point. If you feel like you resonate with this and you feel like this is something you need to do, please start setting healthier boundaries, because you never know what could happen. Do you think that I thought one day that my postman would show up on my doorstep, blasting music and serenading me with his ukulele and his voice? Honestly, if that can happen to me, that can happen to anyone. So number two, this is something that I definitely learned later on in therapy, and I think maybe a lot of it had to do with just growing up and maturing. But I think depending on what you're going through, a lot of coping skills can actually be found on Google. A lot of techniques and coping skills can actually be found on your own. So it depends what works for you. This is something that I've found for what I'm going through in my life currently. I am more than capable in Googling and self-education and looking for certain techniques to help me in my life. Depending on what you're going through though, obviously this varies. Sometimes you genuinely need someone to talk to about what you're going through. I think the older you get and the more therapy you do, there are certain issues that you find self-education is more beneficial to help solve those problems than therapy can be. So that's just something that I wanted to throw out there, because it got to like late last year, my therapist was running through just basically like a framework of something I was going through at the time and sharing with me techniques. And I already knew all those techniques from a book that I literally just read. I just want to make this clear that I'm not devaluing therapy. I just wanted to also put it out there that sometimes self-education can be also beneficial. Okay, so number three, you are not your mistakes. You are not your negative actions. You are not your negative outcomes. I think for a lot of us, we carry quite a lot of shame and guilt around maybe the decisions we made, the things we did when we were younger. This is something that I've definitely experienced. But just because you had a bad relationship, maybe you had a bad friendship, maybe there were things that you did, said, decisions you made in your younger years that you carry a lot of guilt and shame for. That's something that I think I spent a lot of time working through in therapy. And I just was having this conversation with a friend the other day. Sometimes the relationship, whether it be a friendship, a romantic relationship, a relationship with a sibling, sometimes the relationship you have with that particular person can be toxic or can be negative, but that does not necessarily make you a bad person. Sometimes the coming together of two people can clash, and I truly believe that sometimes people can bring out the worst in each other, and everybody makes mistakes. And I encourage you to really let go of a lot of that guilt and shame, and that can take years of work. You know, that can take therapy. Our past actions and the choices, decisions, things we did, said, whatever, do not define us. This next point, this is a question that I began to ask myself later on, because therapy is not cheap. And I know that certain things obviously need the help of a professional and require the help of a professional, but this is something and a question that I started to ask myself within the last like 3 years. And that question is this thing worth speaking to a therapist about? Or is there somebody in my real life that will listen to me vent and for free? And I know this may sound ridiculous, but I think there are certain things, and this is why I think relationships and friendships, especially with women, is so important. And I think in today's world, it's almost becoming less valued, and I think we're kind of losing that connection. And I think technology and, you know, women working and spending more hours at work and trying to look after children and trying to look after families is definitely contributing to this. But I think that community and a sense of community within women is unfortunately lacking more and more. I think we are not as social as we once were. We're either too busy or just don't feel the need to connect like we used to. But, you know, there are certain things, maybe it's just an issue that happened at work. Maybe it's a trivial issue or something you want to vent about in your relationship, or just something small like that. I think it's really great to have really great friendships and close connections with women that you can vent, and you can vent in a safe space about those types of things, because therapy's not cheap, okay? And sometimes all you need is someone to vent to. And like I mentioned, therapy appointments are hard to come by, especially with good therapists, and they aren't cheap. Maybe you don't even need a solution to whatever you want to vent about. Maybe you just want to vent. Next one is something that I learned in my later years, and this is something that, just a bit of background, I think I've seen 3 therapists over the last 9 or 10 years. And this last therapist that I was seeing, again, she was great. I noticed a lot of the things that I was coming to her with, she was not able to offer me a solution. She was not able to offer me what I think I was wanting, which was basically someone to tell me what to do. The common theme for me in the last few sessions I had with this particular therapist was, at the end of the day, the choices were up to me. These decisions, these things that I wanted guidance with, at the end of the day, the choices that I needed to make and the decisions that I needed to make were solely up to me. And that can be both scary, but also very empowering to know that at the end of the day, you are the driver of your own life and you make the decisions for your life. No one else can make them for you. It's up to you. And like I said, it's both scary and it's also very, very empowering, because in the beginning I was like, I want more of an adult than I am to tell me what to do. And yeah, that's not the case. That's not how life works. And a therapist, most likely, I mean, let me know in your experience, but therapists can't make your decisions for you. You have to make your decisions yourself. So the next thing that I want to touch on is something that I personally realized about my own experience, and also the experience of friends who I know also attend therapy. I personally have the belief now, and this is something that I realized after years of therapy, is sometimes therapy can only get you so far. I'm just going to use my own personal experience. Going into the session and venting or just discussing the same issue over and over again with no real solution or no real path out, I personally felt for me was a recipe for disaster. Again, everyone's experiences are different depending on what you're dealing with. Again, I'm trying to be sensitive. Know that there's an array of reasons and things that people go to therapists to speak about, but some of the issues that I was going to speak to somebody about, I felt I was going there, you know, month after month with the same thing, the same complaints, the same issues. And for me, it was a recipe for disaster, because it was just, I was stuck, you know, complaining, moaning, venting, getting upset about the same issues month after month, and not really having an action plan or a way out, or not really even having the drive to do anything about it, is a recipe for disaster, in my opinion. It is a surefire way to kind of just get stuck and not see any change in your life. But I do think that sometimes life coaches can be really beneficial. I do think there is a place for life coaching. I do think there is a place for coaching in general. So that may be something to consider if you are someone who needs that extra support and you feel like therapy is not really getting you there. I think life coaching can also be a really great alternative, or something that can be used in conjunction with therapy. Next one I'm going to touch on really briefly, but this could be a whole discussion in itself. But sometimes, and I think this is a really key part in therapy, it's a really key exercise, and I do think it's great and it's beneficial and it's important, but I don't think really necessarily think it's necessary. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Sometimes trying to get to the root cause, the root reason, the root trauma, or the memory as to why you are the way you are, or why you react the way you do, or why you think the way you do, or why some things trigger you or upset you. I think sometimes that can be beneficial. It can be good to know, but I don't think it's necessarily key. I don't think it's necessary to be able to change. I don't think it's necessary to know why, to be able to rewire your brain or change your life or heal yourself in certain ways. Because I think a lot of the reasons why we are the way we are, a lot of our trauma, you know, is happened many moons ago in childhood. And sometimes you are not going to know why you are the way you are. You're not going to, maybe something did happen to you, but you know, maybe it happened when you were 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, I don't know, even 12. Maybe you don't remember it. And knowing why can be beneficial and it can help you change, but it's not necessary. I don't think you need to necessarily know what happened to make you the way you are. I think acknowledging that and knowing that you want to move past those triggers and rewire your brain for change, or heal parts of those parts of yourself, or that unresolved trauma is enough to be able to move through that. I don't think you always necessarily need to know the root cause, even though sometimes it can be a nice light bulb moment and it can definitely help you along the way to doing so, but I don't think it's always necessary for change. Okay, so the next lesson I learned was I think you can indeed grow too dependent on your therapist. There was a point in my life, and I know of friends who got to this point as well, where I felt like I would often think like, oh, what would insert my therapist's name do? You know, I'd get myself in situations where I'd be like, oh, I wonder what, you know, let's call her Sally. I'd be like, oh, what would Sally do right now? Or I'd have issues with people or certain situations in my life that I would just have to put on hold, and I'd have to pause and I'd have to ignore, and I would wait, you know, whether it be 2, 3, 4 weeks, I would wait until my next appointment to deal with those things. I would wait. I think that can be a space where you grow a little bit too dependent personally. For me anyway, I think it really stifled my independence, my confidence, and my ability to move past things and through things on my own. You know, it really stifled, and again, what I've spoken about in a past video, it kind of almost like put to sleep my intuition a little bit, because I felt like I wasn't equipped to handle what I was going through without the help of my therapist. I needed to tune into what I thought was the right thing to do and how I felt and believed that I should handle it. The next point, something that I learned within the last few years that I found to be really, really beneficial, was how to have effective communication within my relationships. And this is something that I learned especially around conflict. And I don't know about you, but this was never something that I was taught. You know, it's not something that really came instinctually to me. We all have our own coping mechanisms and a certain way we communicate, and sometimes it may not always be the most effective way. So there's a specific framework, and again, this could be a whole video in itself, but this is something that I think I spent like 2 or 3 sessions solely focusing on. And this was this, you know, really kind of professional, strategic framework that is best effective for conflict resolution within relationships. I think we all know, especially if you're in a relationship, you're not always going to see eye to eye on certain things, and meeting your partner in the middle and kind of compromising, or being able to express how you feel and be able to express your ideas and what you want for your relationship, and also to be able to take into consideration how your partner feels, what they want, what their needs are, is really tricky. It can get really heated, especially if you're quite passionate about something and you have completely opposing views on particular things. It can be quite challenging. And there is a specific framework that is really effective to be able to have resolution around conflict without it just blowing up into a complete argument. Because I think, you know, we've all been there, right? Like maybe not. Okay, so the last one I want to touch on is something that I think a lot of people have touched on before, but shopping for a therapist is something that I do think is essential. Like I mentioned, you know, I've had 3 therapists over the last 9-10 years when I've been on and off going to therapy. And also I think something that's not really talked about very much is you can, I think, outgrow a therapist. I think you can outgrow somebody. The first therapist I ever saw when I was 19, again, was another person I just didn't really gel with. Okay, she had a cat, that's great for her, but I don't want to pat your cat. I don't want it on my lap. I don't want to touch it really, but that was her technique. That was her method. I suppose it was like a therapy cat. I left that appointment feeling really uncomfortable, and I just had a hell of a lot of cat fur on me. And that wasn't really what I came there for. So I think shopping for a therapist is really key. You know, some people are going to gel with certain people, and some people you're not gonna connect with, and you're not gonna want to share your most intimate inner brain and thoughts and experiences with. So shopping is definitely key. So just to wrap up, I haven't been to therapy for about 4 months. I think the last time I went was like December last year, and I don't really see myself revisiting anytime soon. At this current point in my life, the way things are traveling, I'm doing pretty good, and there's nothing that I need to speak to a therapist about. That's my little video for today. I really hope that you got something out of it. Share with me your thoughts in the comments down below. Share with me any big takeaways or lessons, or just your thoughts on therapy in general. I'd love to hear from you in the comments down below. Thank you so much for joining me in today's video, and I'll see you in my next one.